You know the person you couldn't let go of? The person that you spent probably too much of your life with, but somehow couldn't shake, even though they gave you almost nothing? There's a reason why the tiny crumbs of attention they gave you felt like electricity. But here's the part nobody talks about. Why someone who barely showed up for you ends up feeling impossible to walk away from. Why you kept hoping that they would turn around. Why you kept trying to show your love and get them to love you in return. Why the pull to them felt stronger than the pain they created within you. There is a reason, and it goes very deep. Once you see it, the spell to the emotionally unavailable people you keep addicting will start to weaken. First, I want to talk to you about the pull. The people who are toxic. The people in your life who have taken more from you than they give, who barely show up. There's something in you that locks onto them. And odds are this hasn't just happened with one person. Odds are this has happened again and again and again. The odds are also that you've not only attracted people who are emotionally unavailable romantically, but it's happened to you in other areas of your life. Friends, family, work. And you can't help but ask yourself, why does this pattern keep showing up? Why do I have a sign on my forehead that seems to scream, emotionally unavailable people, come this way. I'll give you everything you could possibly want, no matter what you give to me. You feel a spark that you can't explain, a pull you don't want but you can't shake. You know that you don't get much from these people. You know that they drain you, they exhaust you, they deplete you. But then the little you do get in return from them feels weirdly powerful. The problem with addictions is this. It's so magnetic and so hard to explain. It's a cycle that you keep repeating, an emotional roller coaster where these people will give you the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in a matter of moments apart. And it's a pull that's so strong and so powerful that you are willing to give up yourself, your values, morals, beliefs, how you see yourself, to show up as a smaller, weaker, lesser version of you, just to be able to get some sense of love or acknowledgement from them. One soft moment in a sea of distance, in a sea of being mistreated. The more rare you get this, the more electric it feels. And even though you know deep inside in those moments that it's not enough, that logically you feel like you deserve more, some part of you kept hoping it meant something. It's not about the one person, the one dynamic, the one relationship. There's a pull to getting hooked on the contrast. The cold turning warm for a second, the distance breaking just long enough for you to feel seen. That tiny bit of closeness hits hard when you've been waiting for it. It feels like proof. It feels like possibility. It feels like a door finally cracking open. And that's what makes the pull even stronger. Not because they were giving you so much, but because you were receiving so little. When affection becomes unpredictable, your mind fills in the gaps. You start imagining what it could be instead of seeing it for what it is. And the less they give, the harder you work. You find yourself leaning in every time they pull away, doing more, being more, trying to be right, be perfect, be beautiful, be confident, be there for them. You're not crazy for feeling a connection to someone who gave you almost nothing. This kind of pull isn't about love. It's about how powerful scarcity feels when you're emotionally starving. When it feels magnetic, to the point that it's addicting. That says more about what you've been missing than what they were giving. There's a high you experience, a rush of dopamine that floods through your system. Why their rare moments of love and attention hit harder, feel bigger than what they should. When that emotionally unavailable person finally gives you attention, a text, a smile, a moment of softness, it hits like a rush. Not because the moment was special, but because it doesn't happen enough. You've been starving for this, and a tiny drop of affection can feel like a feast. A little bit of warmth feels huge when you've been living in an emotional winter. Most people don't realize this, but a lot of us grew up learning to work for closeness. We learn that love shows up when it wants to, not when we need it. So when someone is distant, we don't shut down. We try harder. We hope more. We give more. We put in more effort. We drain ourselves, deplete ourselves, give every ounce of ourselves to this person just for one moment. And without even noticing it, we fall into familiar territory, repeating the pattern again and again and again, trying to get love, respect, attention from the people surrounding you. And then you can't help but wonder, why did these people keep mirroring back to you again and again why love is so hard? There was a time in my life when I was much younger, in my mid-20s, just trying to figure out who I was and how I fit in the world, trying to make my way. I thought I knew a lot about myself then. I thought I understood what I wanted, what I deserved, how to go out and get it. And I had just come from a really wonderful time in my life, and I was now starting a new chapter. And this new chapter was foreign, unexpected, not what I planned or wanted. Very quickly into this new chapter, I started to attract people to me that reflected a version of myself that I did not like. The people who asked me to be the empath, the listener, the giver, the performer, the perfectionist. They didn't ask me explicitly. They didn't tell me what to do or who to be. They just made it really hard to be seen. They made it really hard to be respected. And there was a deeper part of me I couldn't explain, I couldn't put the words to for a very long time, on why I was so drawn to this. Everywhere from my lover, to my boss, to my friends. It was constant output, and I couldn't get enough of it. No matter how ashamed, guilty, burned out I felt, it was like a drug I couldn't get enough of. The most vulnerable thing that can happen in your life is when you're in a sea of people who mirror to you a lesser version of who you really are. That is a far greater loneliness than actually being alone, with no community, no colleagues, no friends, no one to support you. It is far more lonely and isolating to be surrounded by people who do not give you what you deserve. And when that is the only mirror that is reflected back to you, you start to believe that that's your truth. You start to believe that that's going to be your path, your life, no matter how young or old you are, no matter how long you've been in this pattern, or whether you've even realized it's a pattern before you came here. But what you are experiencing is only one truth, only one version of you. It happens to be a version of you that is operating at a very low level, and you know this. But the real question is, where does the cycle come from? It's not just about the one person. It's not just about one area in your life. It's not about a string of friends, bosses, partners that keep reacting and behaving the same way towards you. The harsh reality comes is when you look around and you see people operating in the same way. You hit this moment that can paralyze you if you don't know what to do with it, where you can completely crash and burn, where you realize this has absolutely nothing to do with them. This is about me, and I need to figure out what's the part of me that's emanating this energy, that's allowing myself to attract these types of people, that is making this pattern happen again and again with every added candle that goes onto the birthday cake. Another year older, but not another year wiser. That is the harsh truth. And perhaps you've experienced it in the moments when you try to walk away, when you try to end it, and it hurts way more than it should because they've mistreated you. It feels like you're losing something huge. But what you're actually losing is the hope you kept alive in that emotionally unavailable person, the version of them you imagined, the future you carried alone, the love that you poured out but wasn't reciprocated. That's the grief. That's why it aches. That's why it's hard to let go of these people. You want to hold on to the hope. Letting go feels so painful, not because they were the right person, but because the hope was so strong. And that maybe this time you'll change the pattern. Maybe this time it'll be different. But deep down you have to ask yourself a few things. And I'm going to talk to you about the cost of staying with emotionally unavailable people in a minute. But you have to ask yourself, where does this hope come from? Why are you so emotionally starved? When were you taught that you had to work so hard for love? Odds are this happened before the first person you were aware of. You think you know who the first emotionally unavailable person is because it happens to you as an adult. But odds are this happened much earlier, much younger, when there was an imprint put on you that taught you to work hard, that taught you that people don't love freely, don't give to you freely, that you have to earn it. You have to earn it way more than you should. You have to prove yourself. You have to be perfect. You have to overachieve. You have to be strong, resilient, and you have to put them on the pedestal while keeping yourself in the corner. The crash comes when you start to realize that this is happening to you again and again and again, and the reasons behind it go way deeper and way younger than when you first care to admit. Unraveling all of this doesn't start at identifying the point of origin when you were first taught to draw in emotionally unavailable people. The tipping point happens when you start to realize the cost of staying. You need to see the cost of this cycle. You need to see the cost of this addiction. Maybe you've never heard of the concept that emotionally unavailable people are addicting. The first time I heard this was from a very dear friend of mine, and when she said those words to me, it felt like a punch in the gut. I wanted to go into denial. I wanted to tell her that's not what this is. I thought I was stronger than that, better than that, smarter than that. But the very nature of how I was operating in these relationships, where I kept coming back just for a little dose, a little more, a little hope, that quick hit, that quick high, it was just a different form of addiction. And then I had to ask myself, how did I even get here? So you have to look around at your life and understand, what is this costing you? Unraveling this pattern doesn't start by looking at how long back this goes. It's too overwhelming for your mind, and your mind is going to want to cope and just stay in default and keep doing the same exact thing because it's too much to unravel. We need to first look at, how long has this been your cycle? How long have you spent waiting for someone to become the person you hope they could be? There are people in my past chapters of life where I have spent years doing this. Every time you stay, you weren't choosing them. You were abandoning a version of yourself who deserved better. You knew it. You know it. But you're not acting on it. The question isn't why that person's unavailable. It's how much longer are you willing to put your life on hold for someone who isn't even showing up? And when you look at how much time you have spent staying stuck in this cycle, it's sickening. It might make you nauseous, or filled with rage, or depressed. But that surge of emotion is exactly what you need. When we have breakthroughs in life, and we start to break away from toxic patterns, we can't fantasize this and make this some glorious, light-filled aha moment. It's that quiet, sick feeling of realizing this isn't the first time, or the second, or the fifth. It's seeing the pattern not in them, but in you. It's realizing you've built years to chapters to decades of your life around people who couldn't meet you. And that's why I need to ask you, how much longer are you willing to live like this? How much time have you lost waiting for someone who wasn't choosing you, who didn't choose you? How much of your life has been built around the hope that this time will be different? How many versions of yourself have you abandoned to keep the fantasy alive that someday they'll love and want you the way that you hope for? How deeply have you normalized emotional scraps? You've settled for breadcrumbs of attention. How long have you lived at a fraction of what you actually want and should get out of life, out of relationships, out of love? There's a crossroads right now for you. Do I keep repeating this cycle, or do I finally choose myself? You're not stuck with emotionally unavailable people because you're broken. You're stuck because you've never been taught what to do with this moment, the moment you finally see how much of your life you've given away. But once you can see that, the passing of time, the pain of that passing, this is where things start to change. Because once you see it, once you feel the weight of what this pattern has cost you, you can't pretend you don't know anymore. That's the uncomfortable part. The part where you finally stop asking, why won't they choose me? And you start asking, why am I still choosing them? You don't have to know what healing looks like yet. You don't have to have a plan. You don't have to play the armchair psychologist going back and asking questions about your childhood. You just have to stop abandoning yourself in favor of people who don't show up. And because you're here, you're already closer to that than you think. We're going to keep unraveling this. There's more to understand, more to uncover, and you don't have to do it alone. But for right now, sit with this. Think about the questions. Think about how this hits hard. Think about how much this keeps showing up in your life. And then you can continue to watch and be in this space with me, or explore the options that I have below to go even deeper into this work so I can guide you and help you build a life beyond hurt. But above all, the one thing I want you to know is this. You may have felt the constant pull to emotionally unavailable people, but this can be a past chapter. This can be a cycle that you end and stop. It all mirrors back to you. It all starts with you. And that's exactly what you want. It's never about them. It will never be about them. It's about you making the choice right now to make this your new beginning.